They mocked him for marrying her, but 15 months later, the truth left everyone speechless. Hello everyone. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to hear more meaningful stories. David Miller had never been one for the spotlight. In his mid-30s, with unruly auburn hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and a quiet smile that instantly put people at ease, he lived a life marked by simplicity and sincerity. As a software architect, David was comfortable in his modest home, surrounded by a handful of loyal friends who cherished his kindness and steady presence. But everything changed the day he first saw Jasmine Wilson. It was a chilly autumn evening at a small book signing event for a local author. And Jasmine sat confidently in the front row, her rich, dark skin glowing under the soft lights. Her natural afro crowned her head like a halo, and her eyes sparkled with fierce intelligence as she passionately asked questions about representation and community impact. David, seated 2 rows behind her, found himself captivated, not just by her confidence, but by an undeniable warmth radiating from her, a fire in her voice that made the room feel alive. Jasmine was unlike anyone he had ever met. A plus-sized black woman who carried herself with a boldness and grace that defied every cruel label society had ever tried to place on her. When the event ended, heart-pounding, David approached her hesitantly, clutching his coffee like a shield. "I really liked your question," he said, his voice soft but sincere. Jasmine looked up, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. "Thanks. Not many people say that." "I mean it," David added quickly. "You made me think." That simple exchange sparked a connection that would grow into something neither of them had expected, a bond woven from respect, authenticity, and the quiet promise of love. As David and Jasmine's connection deepened, their world began to revolve around stolen moments and shared dreams. Long conversations stretched into the early hours, their laughter echoing through quiet diners and under star-studded skies. Jasmine, a passionate social worker devoted to youth empowerment and justice, was unapologetically herself, fierce, compassionate, and utterly authentic. But the world outside their bubble was far less kind. When David brought Jasmine to his close friend Jake's birthday dinner, the smiles were tight, the glances loaded with unspoken judgment. Whispers slid through the room like shadows. "Is this for real? She's got more belly than personality." At work, snide remarks followed her like a dark cloud, a colleague sarcastically muttering, "Bet she's got a great personality," while David stood firm, his gaze daring anyone to speak further. Even his own family hesitated. His mother's polite concern came wrapped in careful words. "Are you sure you're happy?" But David's answer was unwavering. "I'm in love." He never asked Jasmine to change, never suggested she alter her hair, her voice, or her body to fit someone else's mold. Their love was a quiet rebellion against every stereotype and prejudice, a testament to seeing beauty and worth where others refused to look. When David finally knelt down to propose, it wasn't with grand gestures or flashy displays, it was in the soft morning light of their cozy kitchen. The scent of pancakes filling the air and the gentle notes of Louis Armstrong playing in the background. Jasmine's eyes welled with tears as she whispered yes, their hearts beating in quiet harmony. Their wedding day was simple but radiant, held beneath a canopy of golden autumn leaves in a local park. Surrounded by a handful of close friends and curious onlookers, David looked dashing in a brown tuxedo with a cream vest, while Jasmine glowed in an elegant white gown cinched with a silver belt, her veil softly framing her serene smile. But even in that moment of joy, the outside world was far from gentle. A photo of the couple walking arm in arm down the aisle was snapped and shared online, quickly spiraling into a cruel viral storm. Captions mocking their love, calling Jasmine a walking mattress, and questioning David's sanity flooded social media. Memes exploded across platforms, and late-night shows made biting references. Yet through the noise, David remained silent, turning off his phone, deleting his social accounts, and focusing solely on Jasmine, who sat quietly that night, tears tracing paths down her cheeks as she scrolled through the hate. "I knew they wouldn't understand," she murmured, voice trembling, "but I never imagined I'd become their joke." David knelt beside her, voice steady and full of love. "You're not their joke. You're my wife, brilliant, fearless, and real. They laugh because they could never be brave enough to love someone like you." Jasmine had spent her entire life navigating a world that measured worth by narrow standards, by waistlines, by skin tones, by impossible ideals that left so many feeling unseen. She was the girl overlooked at prom, the one whose heartfelt love letters were met with laughter. In college, she threw herself into activism, finding refuge in a space where her voice echoed louder than her reflection. Yet beneath the armor of education, advocacy, and sharp wit, the scars of rejection still burned quietly. She had never imagined a wedding day for herself, not truly believed it was within reach. And yet here she was, married to a man who saw her in ways the world never had. Who loved her without condition. That night, wrapped in their thickest blanket, sipping hot cocoa, they watched their wedding video on mute, their laughter, their dance, their hands intertwined beneath the amber glow of autumn trees. "No one can take this from us," David whispered. Jasmine rested her head on his shoulder, the hurt still lingering but the shame finally beginning to fade. In that silent embrace, she felt a flicker of something new: hope, resilience, and the quiet power of being truly seen. The morning after the storm of ridicule, instead of retreating into silence or shame, David and Jasmine made a pact, a promise to each other and to the world that they would not be defined by cruelty but by the strength of their love and the impact they could create together. Fueled by a fierce determination, they co-founded Heart of Worth, a nonprofit dedicated to uplifting marginalized youth, providing access to education, healthcare, and entrepreneurial opportunities. David poured his technical skills into building the systems that would keep the organization running smoothly, while Jasmine poured her soul into leading its mission, advocating tirelessly for those whose voices were often drowned out. Amidst this whirlwind of purpose, Jasmine embarked on a deeply personal journey, not to conform to anyone's standards, but to reclaim her health, her energy, and her sense of self. Without fanfare or announcements, before dawn broke each day, she laced up her sneakers and pushed herself through quiet workouts, embracing discipline as an act of self-love rather than punishment. The weight began to shed, slowly at first, then with accelerating momentum, until over the course of the year she had lost more than 80 pounds, not to prove the world wrong, but to prove to herself that she was capable of transformation on her own terms. Her silhouette evolved, but more importantly, so did her presence, confident, unshakable, and radiant. At a gala event 15 months later, Jasmine stepped into the room wearing a sleek maroon dress, her hair straightened and face glowing with a newfound brilliance. The whispers started immediately. One donor nudged David, saying, "So you brought someone new?" His smile was calm but unwavering. "No," he said simply. "That's my wife." The gasps that followed gave way to silence as Jasmine's powerful presence filled the room, commanding respect and admiration. When reporters asked if her transformation was about silencing the haters, Jasmine smiled knowingly and said, "No, I just learned to speak in a language shallow people understand." Her TEDx talk, raw and inspiring, spread like wildfire across the internet, and her book, Worthy Anyway, soared to bestseller lists, becoming a beacon of hope for countless individuals grappling with self-worth. Media outlets that once mocked her now clamored for interviews, desperate to hear the woman who had turned pain into purpose. In a quiet moment at a grocery store, a former classmate approached her, eyes wide with disbelief. "I didn't recognize you," she stammered. Jasmine's response was steady, filled with grace. "I looked amazing the day I married him too." Even David's once skeptical parents took their seats in the front row as Jasmine accepted the Humanitarian of the Year award. Tears welled in his mother's eyes, and his father whispered, "You've made our son a better man." Jasmine nodded gently, knowing that love had not only changed her life but had transformed the very core of the man who loved her. Together, they had built more than a marriage, they had built a legacy. The world that once mocked Jasmine and David had transformed in ways neither of them could have imagined. The viral wedding photo that had sparked a tidal wave of cruelty was now conspicuously absent from meme pages and social media feeds, the laughter replaced by reverence, the scorn replaced by admiration. Jasmine's journey from the subject of ridicule to a powerful symbol of resilience had rewritten the narrative on what it meant to be worthy, beautiful, and strong. At countless events and galas, Jasmine walked with a newfound poise, her presence impossible to ignore. Her sleek maroon dress, radiant smile, and straightened hair became symbols not just of physical transformation but of an unbreakable spirit. The whispers of disbelief that once followed her were now replaced by awe and respect. Reporters sought her out not to mock, but to learn, to understand how a woman so many had dismissed could rise and inspire millions. Her TEDx talk, a masterclass in vulnerability and strength, went viral, stirring hearts and minds across the globe. Her best-selling book, Worthy Anyway, became a manifesto for anyone who had ever felt unseen, unheard, or unloved. The media, once her harshest critics, scrambled to feature her story, their headlines shifting from derision to celebration. Even former classmates and strangers approached her in supermarkets and on streets. Their words filled with genuine awe and apology. "I didn't recognize you," one whispered, eyes wide. "You look amazing." Jasmine's response, calm and unapologetic, echoed her journey. "I looked amazing the day I married him too." The transformation was not just physical, it was deeply spiritual and emotional, a reclaiming of identity and self-worth on her own terms. David's family, who had once questioned their union, now stood proudly by their side. His mother wept openly as Jasmine accepted the Humanitarian of the Year award. And his father whispered in reverence, "You've made our son a better man." The love that David and Jasmine shared had not only changed their own lives but rippled outward, touching the hearts of those around them, challenging society's shallow judgments and redefining true beauty. The once viral photo was now framed in the National Museum of Social Justice, a permanent testament to their journey, bearing a new caption that told a story of courage, love, and legacy. They laughed, but together they built a legacy. Behind every headline and accolade was the quiet truth that Jasmine had long understood. Her worth was never defined by others' approval but by the love she gave and received. As she stood before crowds, sharing her story with eyes shining bright, she reminded everyone that change doesn't come from shouting back in anger, but from living one's truth so powerfully that the world has no choice but to listen. Outside the auditorium, David waited with flowers in hand, just as he had after her very first speech, a steadfast partner, silently cheering on the woman who had not only saved herself but was now saving the world. Behind every powerful woman, there isn't always a knight in shining armor rushing to save her. Sometimes there is simply a man standing quietly in the background, unwavering in his support, a steady presence cheering her on as she changes the world. For Jasmine and David, their love story was never about fairy tales or grand rescues, it was about partnership, respect, and mutual empowerment. In the years following their viral wedding and Jasmine's remarkable transformation, they built a life that was both ordinary and extraordinary. They still made pancakes on Sunday mornings, played jazz softly in their kitchen, and slow danced beneath the dim light of their cozy home. But when they stepped outside, they were no longer invisible. People stopped and stared, not with ridicule, but with admiration and respect. Jasmine often spoke at universities, conferences, and community gatherings, sharing her journey with raw honesty and unwavering courage. During a memorable Q&A at a university, a young student asked her, "Do you ever wish you had responded to the hate differently?" Jasmine paused, her eyes scanning the eager crowd before answering, "No, because if I had shouted back in anger, they would have remembered my rage, not my truth." Her voice carried the weight of hard-earned wisdom as she continued, "I didn't change to deserve love. I changed because I already had it." The room erupted in applause, the air thick with inspiration and hope. Outside the hall, David waited patiently, clutching a bouquet of flowers, the same gentle gesture he'd made after her very first speech. Their story was not just a testament to love's transformative power but a beacon for all who struggled to find their place in a world quick to judge and slow to accept. Together, they dismantled toxic standards and rebuilt a new narrative, one where worth is defined not by appearance or approval but by authenticity, resilience, and kindness. Their legacy lives on in the countless lives they touched through their nonprofit work. Jasmine's advocacy, and the simple, profound truth that being seen and loved for who you truly are is the greatest victory of all. The story of David and Jasmine teaches us that true love sees beyond appearances and defies societal judgments. It reminds us that self-worth comes from within, and with courage and support, we can overcome hate and create lasting change. If this story inspired you, please like the video and subscribe to our channel for more uplifting and powerful tales. Together, Let's celebrate love, resilience, and authenticity.